Dr. Kemi Lawrence, it is the 12th of November 2024. A young man called Joshua was born in America in the year 2000. Now, he lived with his mother in Atlanta for 5 years. After the 5 years, he went back home to Nigeria with his mother. What happened next will shock you. During the time the young man went home, 2006, his mother then moved to Canada with him, and they lived there for another 5 years. Coming back to Nigeria in 2012, young Joshua was very traumatized from coming from a Canadian school to going to a Nigerian school where they beat him up every day. I'm talking about corporal punishment. Teachers will spank him with a cane. He will come home and cry to his mother and tell his mother that he's going to take his life because they were abusing him. Now, normally that will be child abuse in Canada because they don't beat children in schools over there. The sudden shift affected Joshua. He was always sad. He was always miserable. His grandmother was very, very nasty to him. His grandmother made him look bad because he was dark skinned. She would laugh at him and said, she would laugh at him and say, "You look dirty. You haven't bathed clean today. Go back in the shower and try to bath again." And the young man was just dark. The bullying was too much from his grandmother. And then came his aunties and his cousins. It was really hard for him, and he tried to take his life in his room one day. But of course, he was stopped. At the end of the day, Joshua went through so much in Nigeria that by the time he finished his JSS 1, 2, and 3, his mother and him moved away. When they moved away, eventually, it was so hard where they moved to that Joshua would struggle to get a job by the time he was 18, and many of the jobs will tell him that he can't be hired because he has to be 21. From ShopRite to Spar to different places, KFC, different establishments, which is 21 in Nigeria, to hire, but not even hire him. His mother knew a lot of people and knew those store managers and begged them to just give him a job, but they said he had to wait till 21. By the time he woke up, he had a music blog. He had been blogging since childhood, and he started running a music blog from his room. That music blog was bringing him at least $100 every week. In Nigerian Naira, which was 500 at the time, Joshua was making good money. The little bit of money he was making was yanked away when he used that blog to abuse somebody on Instagram. Instagram disabled his page. Joshua was devastated. He didn't know what to do. He started calling a lot of people that help you retrieve your page, paying them a lot of money from his Naira just to get his page back. One of those guys got his page back, but he vanished the next day. That's what happens when you're paying people outside Instagram to help you retrieve your page. They'll take that page back from them. At the end of the day, Joshua was frustrated. By 2022, he sat on the bed one day, just very sad, crying, and he was going through depression. His mother asked him if he wanted to see a doctor. He refused. His mother's doctor also asked him, "Do you want to see a doctor? Because you're not doing too good." He refused. He sat in his room for an entire year, 2022, and started doing nothing but watching TikTok videos. He did not make one post on his social media platform for the entire year. He said he will not post until he leaves this country. In 2023, January, he left Nigeria. Through the help of his mother's friend, a businessman who happened to like the kind of work he does and his music, now asked to produce a music video for him for his music, because Joshua started doing music in his bedroom during the time that he was in Nigeria. And he made his own EP, which he bumped around the pandemic. And he also went to school online and studied graphic design. But yet, there's still no jobs in Nigeria. One day, he went to the American embassy to look for a job. He wanted to be either a security guard or a messenger or a job in the U.S. Embassy, knowing that the U.S. Embassy pays dollars. He went there and he went to search for jobs, but he didn't find one that he liked. At the end of the day, they told him to come back and keep checking because some of the jobs he was not really qualified for. He just wanted a blue collar job in the embassy. So he went home, and that businessman said, okay, I'm going to make a music video for you. I'm going to call the big music video directors. He was excited. A music video director that's prominent in the Nigerian music industry was called, and they were going to give him money to do a music video for one of Joshua's songs. Hey, he was happy, but he told that businessman, I'm sorry, I really want to use that money to travel back to my country, America. And the businessman bought the ticket. He brought the ticket, 2 or 3 million naira, and then the countdown began, and Joshua left Nigeria. When he arrived in America, he was going to live with a friend of that businessman. A friend of that businessman, they picked him up at the airport. They put him in a motel. I guess they were quarantining him because of COVID or whatever. And 2 days later, he moved into their house. Joshua was always freezing in their house because he was not used to the AC. He hated the air conditioner in Nigeria. And then he would go into their house while they were at work and turn on their heater. It was what they call central AC. So the heater would be blowing, and what Joshua did not know that he was wasting their electricity bill. Well, they will come home and the wife will get mad. And then the wife and the husband had some kind of feud with their Nigerian relatives. And then the wife told Joshua in his room, when these people come to visit, don't even greet them. Just stay in your room. He felt bad, like, what is my own? I'm just here to stay with you for 3 months until I can get myself together. But at the end of the day, because he didn't comply, the wife tossed him out. The husband said, you can't do that, you can't do that. The wife said, yes, I'm going to do that. And then the wife called his mother in Nigeria and told his mother that your son can no longer live with us and he's going today because he's rude and blah, blah, blah. His mother spoke to Joshua. His mother spoke to me. And at the end of the day, they just took him, right, down to their old house where they were moving. They were actually moving from an old house to a new house. And Joshua's stuff was still at the old house. They took him back to go pick his PlayStation and his stuff. And then he stood at the lobby, not knowing where to go. Even though you're American, you are stranded. You don't know where to go. What's next? They told him to get out of the lobby. In that if he does not leave that lobby, they'll call the police on him. And I called his mother. His mother called me and said, what do we do now? I said, let him go outside. Don't stay in the lobby because she'll call the police. And you shouldn't let your child have a police record. You know, he's new. Joshua stayed on the streets of Dallas, Texas, 3 days homeless. He sat with drug addicts. He sat with people who had guns, dangerous people on the street. And whenever he wanted to eat, he would just order DoorDash and they'll bring it to his homeless location. He now went to 3 homeless shelters. All of them were full. They told him to come in the morning. When he came in the morning, they said that he could not bring more than 1 suitcase. And he came from Nigeria with 2 suitcases. At the end of the day, Joshua was homeless for 3 days until he got some help. I called his mother and told her that I was going to throw in some money for the air ticket for him to go live with a friend of mine on Facebook. Joshua went to Baltimore, Maryland. The friend said, I will pitch in another 100. We bought the ticket and we sent him to Baltimore, Maryland to stay with a Facebook friend. When he landed in Baltimore, that friend picked him up. What happened next will shock you. The friend was very nice to him and said, I have an 18-year-old son. You guys can be buddies. You can share the room. Everything was nice and hospitable until the same thing started again. I spoke to Joshua and I said, what is the problem? with you and this people. He was just having a hard time adjusting. Stay tuned for part two. Kemi Talk Stories.